Call the April 19th, 2016 Colerain Township Zoning Board meeting to order. If you have a wireless phone, please silence it. And if you would, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Faring?
Here.
Mr. Grody?
Here.
Mrs. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Westfall?
Here.
Mr. Taylor?
Here. Okay. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes of the last meeting? Mm-hmm. If so, do we have any changes or corrections or anything?
I make a motion they be approved as written. Second.
All right. Motion has been approved and seconded. Can we have a roll call?
Mr. Faring?
Yes.
Mr. Grody?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Westfall?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye. Thank you. Public address. No one signed up to speak on any matters that aren't already on the agenda, so we'll just breeze on past that. Item number 4 on the agenda, final development plan for case ZA 2001-04 Forever Green. This is to request an extension of their final development plan that was approved back in 2014. I don't think there's anyone here from Forever Green, is there? No? Okay. Staff, you?
Just a very brief presentation for you this evening. This was a case that the initial zone change was requested all the way back in 2001. The existing preliminary development plan was approved in 2011, along with then the final development plan in 2011. I believe an extension was granted in 2013, and then a new FDP was approved in 2014, and again, an extension was granted in 2015 for this to expire May 23rd of this year. The request is to extend this one more time to May of 2017. I do have, and I apologize for the technical difficulties. You should have the slides in front of you. That timeline should be on your slide, and there is also a slide there with, excuse me, the zoning on this property, because there's a little bit of confusion. There are actually two different Forever Green properties. So just to be clear, the one that we're discussing is zoned for PDB, kind of to the west of the site. The other one is the PDI.
Just so you're aware, most of us have been through this whole ordeal with them, so we're kind of familiar with it.
So that's the extent of staff's presentation.
Have you had any contact with them recently? I mean, do you believe they're actually working towards trying to fulfill this plan, or are they just trying to stall it?
We issued a zoning permit for the other site, the 2014 case, for the PDI site. There was a permit issued, I believe it was November of 2015. It was just a few days before that that FDP would have expired. So in issuing that zoning permit, it essentially gave them another year to start work on the property. It's my understanding they do have a building permit that has not been finalized out yet. This was for an accessory storage structure. Other than that, I am not really familiar with this site. The only contact I've had with them was recently to get on this agenda to ask for the extension and kind of some exchange back and forth about which projects we were talking about in this particular extension request, and what that timeline really was, whether or not we were expired or were soon to expire, and that's really the extent of the contact I've had with them.
So if we were to not grant the extension they're requesting, they would have to come back and start all over, correct?
Yes. Okay. Well, they would have, the FDP would expire, and they would have a year to come back with a new FDP. If they don't come back with an FDP within that year, the PDP expires.
Okay. What do you guys think.
Why do they need another extension? I've been here for a while, and every year it looks like they come back for an extension.
I'm not sure staff can answer that question.
Okay.
Mr. Grody?
I rode down to take a look at the site this past weekend, and I had all my notes with me. And honest to goodness, I could not determine what they have done and what they haven't done in relation to what was approved through this commission several times. And if you look back at the January 22nd, 2014 minutes, it shows that this whole issue is plagued with all kinds of problems and property changing hands and cease and desist orders and so on and so forth. And that I think the question that Mr. Taylor asked is, are we just being strung along here? And that's kind of the feeling I get. That the place is a mess from the front. They planted new trees, but the hillside is not taken care of at all. It looks an absolute mess from Harrison Avenue. Driving up on the property, there's one new 3-bay garage type building, very tall building, and that's the only new construction that I can see. I counted the number of semi-trailers that are on the property, and there's more there than are supposed to be there. And there's trucks parked everywhere, and snow plows parked everywhere, and you just can't tell, other than a lot of concrete having been poured for pavement purposes. I couldn't tell that they really have made any appreciable effort to uphold their plans and so forth. So I would find it difficult, and especially that they're not here this evening to render an opinion as to why they need this extension. And if my memory serves me correctly, when they were here last time, this group kind of didn't come out and say it, but said, we'd be very reluctant if you come back another time, is what was the message, I think, that was kind of behind the scenes.
Mr. Perry? Mr. Westfall?
Well, last year, my comment was, are you doing anything out there, or are we just blowing in the wind? And I really don't think that they're making any progress. I think we are being strung along, and considering this all started in 2001, now I know it changed hands since then, but this has been going on forever. I think that 15 years is long enough.
Okay. I feel the same way. So I guess at this point we can have a motion to approve or deny the request.
I'll make a motion that we deny the request for final development plan extension, case number ZA 2001-04 for Evergreen Corporation.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Faring? Yes. Mr. Grody?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Westfall?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes. Okay. Moving on to item number 5 on the agenda, it's public hearing for case ZA 2016-02. This is a zoning resolution text amendment to modify some language around signage in commercial districts. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This text amendment was initiated by the Zoning Commission in February of this year. If you'll recall, this was an item that the Board of Zoning Appeals asked that you take a look at and review due to a handful of cases coming in where they felt like they were kind of granting the same variance over and over again. The Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission did recommend approval at their April 7th, 2016 meeting. I will read you the language specific to be added in this particular paragraph. It is for paragraph 15.8.3, dealing specifically with commercial signage in a handful of these designated districts. The recommendation is to add paragraph 5 to read, buildings located within a commercial center or complex which has an elevation immediately adjacent to and facing a primary entry drive may be permitted to have a wall sign per business on that frontage in addition to or in lieu of a sign facing a public street, provided that they meet the requirements of this section and would be permitted at a ratio of 0.5 square foot for each lineal foot of the building elevation or tenant space facing such primary entry drive, whichever is smaller. The total sign area of a wall sign on this single building elevation facing such primary entry drive shall not exceed 100 square feet. The recommendation of staff is for approval of this text amendment. I just want to point out that the Regional Planning Commission noted 2 changes. One was essentially kind of a typo change. We missed a paragraph when we actually sent them we essentially deleted paragraph 4 and added it to paragraph 3. It was just a typo type of thing. But the other was using the term entry drive. Originally, the way that was drafted was as an access drive, and very thoroughly the Regional Planning Commission staff noted that there were actually 3 separate times in our definitions where we used the term access drive. So for clarity, they recommended that we change that to entry drive, which we've done.
Okay. Since there's no one here in the public who'd like to speak about it, I think we can discuss it amongst ourselves. Mr. Faring, any questions, comments? Mr. Westfall?
Looks good to me.
Mrs. Smith?
No question.
Mr. Grody?
No comment.
I concur, so I accept the motion to approve this zoning amendment.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Faring?
Yes.
Mr. Grody?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Westfall?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye. All right, moving on to 5B. This is a public hearing on case ZA 2016-03, 7967 Wesselman Road. This is a zone map amendment from R3 Suburban Low Residential to B3 Commerce District.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is probably going to be a little more challenging for us tonight without the PowerPoint, but again, you do have the slides. Please feel free to ask me any questions. We'll do our best to clarify what we have. This is the first time this application has been made to the Zoning Commission, and the Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission did vote to recommend approval of this application in a 5-2 vote. I'm not sure how familiar you are with how the Regional Planning Commission tends to view. They kind of have a policy on how they view single letter zone changes. They're not generally in favor of them, so receiving a favorable 5-2 vote, I think, speaks volumes about this particular request and how appropriate it is. If you want to move on, then on page 7 of your slide packet, it's kind of an aerial image of the site with zoning overlaid. The site is highlighted in red there. One thing I do want to point out is that the staff's floodplain mapping is not up to date. This is not current. So that squiggly line where you can see the hashing of the riverfront district is not accurate. If you look down on the next slide, what the applicant provided to us that reflects I believe it's the 2014 FEMA floodplain, is where the zoning line technically sits via our text of the code. The request is to change this property as well as the property over Interstate 74 to B3. And this does not include any of that riverfront district. Staff recommended to the applicant that they not touch that riverfront district because I think we need to look at that more comprehensively and make any modifications to that on whole rather than on a site-by-site basis because of the reasoning behind that riverfront district and the protection of those natural resources. Let's see. Very quickly, I'll run you through kind of some of the adjacent zones. Everything to the north is zoned in that riverfront district. To the south is residential and planned district residential. Across the highway there, you can see that PDR to the south. The highway itself, that parcel that the highway sits on itself, is zoned residential. Part of the rationale for including that parcel is that if that were to remain zoned residential and the subject property were to be zoned to B3, there would be buffer yard requirements associated with that, even though the adjacent parcel is not technically residential. It's zoned residential, but it's obviously not being used as residential. And I think that highway in between the existing residential and whatever might happen on this property serves as plenty buffer for that residential property. Everything to the west is B3 Commerce District, as well as Riverfront, and the east is Riverfront District as well. If you want to flip to page 8 of your slides, you only get to see one image because of our technical difficulties, but the site is used currently as one single-family residential home, kind of up on the plateau. The riverfront, you would have seen from the slides, so again, I apologize. The riverfront district, actually, you can see there's a pretty significant topographic change along this property, and that's essentially where that flood line lies. What you're looking at here is an image looking from the property on the west that is zoned B3 into the property. So in the distance there, just to the left of that black truck, if you can see that, is that single-family residential property there. So it's a pretty large flat area on top of the hill there. Staff finds that this zone change request does conform with comprehensive planning efforts. This is considered to be in the Harrison Avenue character area, which is intended to be a gateway employment center. Part of the development vision for the Harrison Avenue character area is that redevelopment of underutilized sites and improved development standards will improve the overall appearance of the area so that this can really become a gateway that the township is proud of. And it also identifies preservation of low-lying areas in their natural state. So again, that riverfront district, which is not being requested as part of this zone change. There are a few land use guidelines for this character area. It calls for buildings to be located so that the development will only disturb the land and vegetation along the ridge tops or on the flattest area of the property, which is what this zone change would achieve. Flood-prone areas should be preserved as public, natural, or recreation areas to the fullest extent possible. Again, the Riverfront District helps achieve that. And then use-wise light industrial office or office uses are appropriate uses provided they are outside of the floodplain and are protected from periodic flooding. The land use plan, which was adopted in 2011, identifies this area for planned mixed-use employment as well as green space and agriculture, but that green space and agriculture is actually designated right over where the highway is. So really, what we're talking about is planned mixed-use employment center. This planned mixed-use employment center should contain architectural, landscape, streetscape, and signage standards, which would be applied through the zoning district, and essentially looking for kind of a campus-style planned development. Currently, the site is underutilized with a single-family residential dwelling and outdoor storage. Staff does recommend approval of this zone change request, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions you might have or anything that wasn't clear based on my non-technical presentation.
Did Hamilton County approve this, or did they discuss spot zoning?
They recommended approval in a 5-2 vote. It's my opinion that those two votes had to do with the long-held policy of that committee that they are not generally favorable of single-letter zoning, because there isn't a specific development review associated with that. I tend to disagree with that because when a development does come in, there is a thorough staff review before zoning permits are issued, and there are, strict standards that must be met within that zone change. It's just that review does not necessarily go through regional planning or even this body if they're able to meet that zoning. This was, again, I think a very powerful vote from the Regional Planning Commission to have them vote in favor of this zone change request, again, because their dislike of the single letter, but one of the swing votes, he actually mentioned spot zoning. The alternative would be a planned district, which itself would actually be spot zoning in this particular area. So when they started to kind of weigh what the alternative was, it makes more sense as a B3 district.
So what happens to the home that's nearby? One that you talked about earlier.
The one that's on the property remains as existing until the owner of the property chooses to do something. Otherwise, it would become a non-conforming use.
Okay, thank you.
Ready?
Do we have the applicant?
We will. I just wondered if you have any questions for staff. No? Any more questions? No? Mr. Abercrombie, anything you want to add?
Good evening. My name is Tom Abercrombie. My address is 3377 Compton Road, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45251. I'm the engineer for the applicant. With me, the applicant is Randy Wayne in the maroon shirt, his brother Rusty Wayne. You've seen them before. They're icons in this community. The property, since we don't have that, I'm going to refer to page 7 if you want to pull that out. And the bottom picture is actually the zoning map that we prepared to show what we have here. To put you exactly where it is if you drive out I-74 and you're almost at the Miami-Town exit. They are the Wayne Construction and Wayne Demolition. They build and tear them both down, so they do both. So the two brothers own that. The property we're talking about is a property to the east of that is vacant, off to the right, and then there is a house way down. You don't hardly see it from the road, but there is a house down there. This property is zoned residential, and if you can see by the map that I have here, I think what changed the whole complexity of this area out here is when they built I-74. This property was actually part of the property to the south of I-74, and when they cut this through here, the property to the north of it became business property, the south of it stayed residential. And you can see the red is actually the business district, the green is the residential districts, which we want to change. The blue is floodplain. Doesn't mean that it floods like that, but it is floodplain. And to the north of this are businesses like the Hamilton County Garage and Air Conditioner, West Side Paving. All these companies exist down there, and it floods so rarely that those businesses aren't affected by very much. Anyway, our property ends out to be just sitting out there. It's a piece of residential property surrounded by either floodplain or the B3 district, and Mr. Wayne has no plans for it. He would like to market the property, actually, and he gets no response when it's sitting there in zoned residential and somebody wants to build a house on it. So we did discuss that with Jenna and her staff, and the single letter district seemed to be the more correct way, even though it's not the way people like to do things without a plan, but he doesn't have a plan. So we thought this was a good idea. On your preliminary report, you thought it was a good idea. The regional planning thought it was a good idea, that's a milestone that you get them to do that. But if there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer it. There was one thing in the staff report, if you read regional plan, there was a little triangle piece of property that didn't show up in Mr. Wayne's name, and the reason it didn't, because he recorded it today, and I'm going to give Jenna the deed for it. And I can discuss that if you want to, but it's really just a technicality. And if she's happy, we're all happy. So anyway, that's what we have. If we got any questions, we'll be glad to answer any of them.
Anyone?
Is that little triangle part that you're talking about, Mr. Abercrombie, reflected in this green area here?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It's right where, do you have this big map?
Mm-hmm.
It's right where the driveway comes in.
Okay,
You'll see a little triangle right there that was actually owned by somebody else. And I didn't know it, but he made arrangements to buy it a while back, but never recorded the deed. So when we actually submitted to regional planning, we did not include that piece. And they picked it up, so then went back and he got the deed recorded, and we changed the legal description through Jen and everything, so everything's up to date right now. So,
Okay. Thank you.
thank you.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this zoning change? No? Okay. If you guys have any discussion, I think we, at the preliminary review, told them we thought this was a good idea, as Mr. Abercrombie pointed out, so I don't think we have any issues, do we? I would accept the motion to approve case ZA 2006-03.
So moved.
Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right.
Mr. Faring,
Yes.
Mr. Grody,
yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Westfall,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye. Probably not the prettiest place to build a home. All right, next up, item number 6 on the agenda. This is an informal concept review. 3330 Compton Road. Proposed map amendment to change an R6 urban residential to a PDB planned business district. Staff?
Staff does not have a presentation on an informal.
Oh, good point. I'm a rookie here. The applicant here. Come on up, please. Tell us your name and.
My name's Terry Klopstein.
Tom Shoemaker with Cincinnati Commercial Contracting, and we're helping Terry see if we can develop the property.
Okay, all right.
In the absence of the...
Yeah, sorry about that.
Tyler, do you want to...
Sure.
You should have copies of those in your packet, yes.
Okay.
I got smaller ones.
We did
And
some...
this is on Compton, kind of just behind, I'll say behind, if you turn onto Compton from Colerain, it's on the left behind Bell's facility, right? Okay. I think most of us have either
It's right.
driven
next
by
to
or
it.
yeah,
Right
right
next
next to it, yeah. I say behind, but next to it.
I'm almost across the street from Mr. Abercrombie's office. Very convenient. So what I thought we could do is, first of all, maybe Terry could explain a little bit about the business.
Okay.
Preparing to...
S&T Auto Detailing is a company that takes car dealers, trade-ins, leases, executive cars, and we clean them and so they can be resold. We already have an existing business over in Burlington, Kentucky. We already do business with Carrie, Joseph, Jeff Weiler. We also do commercial and residential as far as people bringing their cars in for detailing. And that's about it. We just detail cars, and we're trying to expand the Colerain market. And then after this, hopefully go to Kings Mountain.
Makes sense.
On this piece of property, it's real close next to Colerain. We've already done some business for Jeff Weiler on Colerain, but they decided that it's too far to take to Burlington. So we do think that there is a clientele here, and we've already got a track record with most of the dealers over in Kentucky that have some on Colerain Avenue.
All right, thank you.
So in terms of scope of work, there's an existing residence on the property, which will obviously be raised. And then the plan is to construct a new approximately 6,000 square foot building with a small amount of office, and then the rest would be detail bays. We're going to create parking for approximately 15 cars, mostly employees, and improve the access from Compton Road up to the property. So the way the current topography works, really the best place to build is toward the rear of the property, which is kind of a plateau. You come through a valley off Compton Road. It comes down very steep and back up the hill. So it would be set back off the road a fair distance, as you can see from the plan. But an important part of this is improving the access point from Compton Road. It's a pretty difficult residential driveway right now that comes off very steeply from the street. So we'd want to reconfigure that so it's a nice, clean transition up to the parking. We did some quick 3D renderings in SketchUp for a building of about that size and configuration. Obviously, we haven't gone down the road of final architectural and civil design, but it was, the intent was to get the conversation started. So.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Faring, any questions?
They're looking at this, will there still be a house in between you and the property that Bell sits on? Looking at this drawing here, is that that white building? Is this, I'm real familiar with the property, but I didn't pay attention there. Is this a house here? What is this here?
This is
I guess, right, what I'm asking, is there two houses right now in between the Bell building and the school entrance? Or just one?
I'm not sure what that is there.
Okay. Oh, this looks like a drive in a small house building,
That would be gone.
or if that's the existing house.
That
still
on the
there.
property?
That's the one that you're gonna take out, okay.
So that'll be gone.
And it's vacant, right, currently?
if you want to call it a house. There's not much left to it.
No,
It's in pretty bad
it's coming
shape.
down regardless.
One way or another,
I'm
it's,
hoping to get the zoning changed, but if not, I'll build a house.
There's a big wind that'll come down.
But the house is uninhabitable.
does that answer your question, Mr. Faring?
Yeah, I was just curious if there was one or two houses in between here. I do remember,
Mr.
I believe the property's been for
No questions.
Mrs.
Go
Smith?
forward to what
I don't have
see.
any concerns.
Mr. Grody?
Will there be any opportunity for just customers like us to get a car detailed?
Yes, I call that commercial, but it's residential or anybody can drop their car off. And obviously, the bulk of our business is detailing cars.
Dealerships?
But we do, people who drop their cars off.
Okay. Have you given any thought to possibly working something out with Northwest Local Schools to have access off of their driveway also?
This is a preliminary, we're just wanting to know if we can get the zoning changed, and then whatever
Okay.
questions you have about access, and we can obviously put that into the drawing. I'm new at this, so I may not understand what you're asking.
Well, it's a suggestion
We're,
to consider it, if they would consider it.
You mean in addition to off of Compton or instead of off of Compton?
And/or,
And-
because that's just such a busy area right there with the couple bends in the road.
definitely help with access. And,
What, the driveway to,
well, to keep the access off Compton, but have another way to get in and out, like
on the
on the
entrance to
school.
Houston?
Yeah,
Right.
It's a,
That'd be fine.
yeah, it's a good idea. I don't know if you can, I don't know where the school district would, they may say, but
True. And the topo is a little challenging on that side of the property too, I think.
is it,
But we can.
it's just an idea.
Oh yeah, we're in the very early stages of design, so any and all input is welcome.
Anything else, Mr. Grady?
No, I'm okay.
I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good place for it. I mean, a lot of car dealers on Colerain, and if you already work with those dealers and, have relationships, it's probably beneficial to you, and it's probably something they need, so it's a good use of that location. I don't foresee an issue with this commission in granting the change that you're requesting.
Thank you.
What is your timeline?
As quick as possible, because we do have dealers who are already interested in us being there. But it depends on what this process, how long. If we know we got a pretty good shot of getting the zoning changed, we'll get the architect to start on the building. So it's gonna be a 6,000 square foot warehouse with a little office, because the bigger the office, the less room we have to wash cars. So it's gonna be a simple building.
I don't foresee the zone change being a problem.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 7, old business. Appears there is none. Any new business?
Actually, we'll handle it under administrative, sorry, no.
All right. Hey, how about any administration
Here we go.
business?
2 items for you very quickly. If I can find my sheet, 1 second. We have started working with the comprehensive plan kind of task force, 2 members from this board as well as 2 members from the Board of Zoning Appeals. We're doing that kind of strategically so that we don't have to call a public hearing, but rather every time we meet, but what we can do is present then updates to this board as well as the BZA when we already have public hearings going on. It's kind of a matter of efficiency in moving through this process. But we are continuing to assemble that committee. We will be talking with each of the trustees this week in order to kind of get their understanding of what's going on, making sure everybody's okay, that this is a well-rounded committee and really represents all of the varying interests in Colerain Township. And we are hoping to set the next meeting soon, looking for mid-May to have that meeting. So that's kind of a brief update on comprehensive plan. Hopefully we'll have more for you. The goal is to have more detailed information for you, timelines and schedules in May. The second item is just wanted to make this board aware of what's going on with the new Chick-fil-A development. As you're probably aware, it did open about 2 weeks ago now. Had a really nice grand opening. But what you also may notice is that they've actually made a couple of changes to their parking on their site. Now, what this officially requires is a minor modification from this board. The soonest they would be able to get on your agenda would be for the June 21st agenda, because the next deadline is May 3rd. I'd like to request that you allow them to get onto your May 17th agenda, because we won't need public notification. This would be a minor modification to an FDP. They're having, in the first several days they were open, had a number of accidents. And I do have a memo from Chief Denny, Chief of Police, about the special detail that we had from our own police department out in that parking lot. They have made some changes, so now instead of entering that site counterclockwise, instead of entering that site clockwise, you're now entering counterclockwise. But what's happening is that drive-through now stacks around the building. And when it does that, those drive aisles are actually very narrow for drive aisles. And with the 90-degree parking, if that drive-through is backed up, you actually cannot get in or out of any of those spaces. So you sit and wait for the drive-through to move. It's kind of a mess. So what
But they designed it that way, right?
that was the approved FDP, yes. So what they came in and wanted to do, and I do not have the authority to give them the approval to do this, but they made me aware that this is what was happening. We have the memo from Chief Denny. They also have a verbal agreement at this point. They're working on getting it in writing, that shared parking agreement with the owner of the complex to absorb the 6 spaces that they will lose when they angle their parking. I believe that this site required 69 or 70 spaces, and I think they built it and were approved to only have like 35 spaces. But the way that this is functioning, it's almost as if they have no spaces. So they did go out. It's my understanding they went out on Sunday and angled all of those spaces already. They are well aware that this board has the authority to tell them they will need to put that back if that is what you choose, if that's the action that you choose most appropriate. But they wanted to make you aware of what's going on. I wanted to make you aware of what's going on. They recognize that this has been done without official approval. They hope that you will understand, and they are working to get on, hopefully, your May agenda so that you can officially hear this. And if we need to talk through any other details, they'd be happy to work with you on that. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to place them on your May agenda for a minor modification due to losing 6 parking spaces.
What's the gist of Chief Denny's memo?
Essentially that it very quickly became a safety concern with accidents, as well as then also needing Colerain Township officers on special detail in that lot to facilitate the traffic
I mean,
through
that,
there.
that's fine. I don't have an issue. My guess is part of it is just because it's brand new and everybody was rushing up there. And I mean, it'll probably kind of in time die down a bit, but it sounds like it's probably a
I
good
think
idea.
some of us feel the same way, but it's my understanding, based on working with Mr. Osborne at Chick-fil-A, that these are the numbers that they are expecting. And I don't know if you were on the site before even the one-way was reversed. It was a trying several minutes to get through the parking lot. So it is already a little better. I was up there again before they angled the spaces, and it was still very challenging. I have not been up there since they've angled the spaces. At least it's my understanding they've angled the spaces. I believe they were planning to do that on Sunday.
I think we thought it was going to be a little too crowded when we approved it, as I recall.
So let me ask a dumb question. If this is kind of a foregone conclusion and they've already done it, can we just say okay, or do they have to come back here?
Technically, staff can't give them okay, and we need to run them through the official process. We should get it on the public record that you officially saw. We actually have the drawings in front of you. You know exactly what you're approving. We've crossed all our T's and dotted all of our I's. That said, you still have the authority if you feel so moved to not approve this, and they're well aware of that. They're hoping that's not what you decide, but they do recognize that if you decide, they will put it back.
Okay. I don't. Does anyone have a problem with putting that on the May 17th agenda?
No.
I don't have a problem with it. One question I do have, though, if they're going to take 6 spaces out of the other parking, I know when this all went through, they couldn't give them another inch, and now they're giving them 6 spaces. Does that affect the capacity of the other parking lot?
That's something that we'll have to look at. I don't know that was necessarily. I have not personally looked at that. Now, I wasn't on board with Colerain before when this actually came through. So what I'm working is based on the fact that shared parking agreement is already in place, and if they have a verbal agreement that they can absorb 6 more spaces, what I'm working on is the assumption that they can actually absorb those spaces. I think this may be an opportunity to push for the cleanup of that parking lot if we see fit. This would be the opportunity to really try and push on that. Now, keep in mind that the applicant before you is going to be Chick-fil-A, who is not the owner of the rest of that parking lot.
They might not really be able to facilitate that happening, but
May not, but it may be something we want to consider in that discussion.
As I recall, this parking thing, because they couldn't come up with any shared parking, it had to do with the footprint. He had those lots the way he wanted them and didn't want to change them. I think that was the problem with that.
Yeah, they were both in here, Chick-fil-A and the
Right.
owner of the.
Because they wanted more parking and he wouldn't give them any more.
It's a very
He said that
challenging
lot's that
site.
size.
the other businesses maybe though happy with all the traffic that Chick-fil-A's bringing
Right.
in there. It may be benefit to them. I don't know.
I would hope.
Okay, I think
That's all for administrative
I think
items.
We're good with putting it on the May
Yeah,
17th
no
agenda.
problem.
Great.
We don't need to vote on it or anything, do we?
I don't think so. It's just a matter of our internal deadlines for how long we typically have to prep for those meetings, but I think we have everything.
Can you make it okay?
Yes,
Okay.
I think we're in good shape.
Anything else from the administration?
Nope.
I have a couple of questions. If you can answer them, and you may be able to, you may not be allowed to answer the questions. But do we know who, if anyone's going into the Dick's space when they move to what was Hobby Lobby?
I do not have that information.
Do we know if anyone's going into the old Pizza Hut space across from Stone Creek?
I cannot answer that information.
Yeah, that's
I cannot answer.
Domino's.
Domino's.
I'm sorry, which space are we talking about? The Pizza Hut?
Yeah.
Oh, Pizza Hut.
Pizza
No,
Hut, no, I'm
talking,
sorry, which
Kentucky Fried
one?
Chicken. The old
Kentucky Fried Chicken is Domino's.
Pizza Hut, I don't know.
Are they gonna tear the building down to Pizza Hut?
Okay, I'm sorry, we do have a BZA application in on that. It's Tim Hortons
Tim Hortons.
In the Pizza Hut location?
in the Pizza Hut
Really?
location,
Cool.
yes.
But not a new building?
For a tear down rebuild.
Oh, good.
Good.
It's a half-acre site, so it's a tight site, but we're talking about redevelopment of the site, yeah.
Something different around here. I don't know of any. farms around
Is that a restaurant?
It's a.
Yeah.
It's like a coffee shop, kind
Coffee
of.
shop and donuts.
They're out of Canada. They're really popular up north. And they're big in Dayton and Columbus.
Somebody needs to, that's a mess.
Which parking lot?
The one that goes in and out of Pizza Hut and Hobby Lobby and
Yeah.
Star One and Bob Evans.
It's a separate parcel.
They're all.
And they are zone B2, I believe, so it's not even, that's not even a planned district. I believe that Bob Evans is a planned district. I'd have to double check the zoning, but I'd be happy
The
to.
falling apart, the parking lot's falling apart. They cleaned up the Hobby Lobby part, but the entrance there is a mile.
You didn't sign up. I'm just kidding.
In the same vein, have you heard anything about the old Kroger's?
I have not, no.
Everything's still progressing with the Kroger Marketplace.
It is slowly. Right now, we're waiting on Goodyear to finish their space at the corner of Flat Top and Springdale so that they can vacate and Kroger can.
And is that one residential house going to remain in between all this?
I have no official information on that.
Understood.
Yeah, any unofficial information.
We'll talk about that in a
I
few
do
minutes.
not have any information on that.
Any announcements? Yes.
Perhaps, tell me if this is not appropriate to ask this, but in relation to the Forever Green case again, can you explain where it goes to, what transpires from here? Obviously, they'll be notified of our action this evening, and then what's the time sequence from there?
So I believe the FDP they have in place expires May 22nd, 23rd-ish of this year. When that expires, and let me pull this up real quick just to make sure I read this correctly. So when you have a PDP approved, preliminary approved, you have 1 year to get your final development plan in. If that final development plan expires, it's my understanding the preliminary is still in place, but you would have 1 year to submit a final development plan. Otherwise, your preliminary development plan expires also. And then we start all over. And then what we have is a site that is zoned as a planned district. And I believe it's this board or the Board of Trustees could go back and rezone that site themselves if they wanted to. Or you could just leave it as a planned district without a plan, meaning somebody would have to come in and go through the preliminary as well as the final development plan process as well. And that's all, just in case you want to look at it yourself, that's all in section 4.5.4 on time limits with those plan districts.
So if Forever Green does not come forth within a year with another final development plan, then the PDP
Expires.
expires. And then, does that mean they have to cease and desist their business there then?
Keep in mind that the extension request that was in front of you tonight was for that completely vacant parcel.
They wanted the corner of East Miami and Harrison.
The property that is zoned PDI, that has existing uses on it, that would have expired, I think it was like November 20th of 2015. They came into the zoning department and requested and received a permit for an accessory structure on November 2nd or 3rd. So what that means is, so they came in and they got a zoning permit within a year, meaning they now have a year to actually be working on it. Essentially, as long as we see movement on it, it's not going to expire. That's where that sits. So when you're talking about ceasing and desisting, is that the right word?
Yeah.
Sorry, didn't sound right. I think you're thinking of the PDI property, which is not expired at this point. The PDB property, there would be nothing to cease doing. It is currently sitting
And
vacant.
if I recall, that property that we're talking about at the corner, that's where he wanted to build a retail outlet, right?
Yes.
I don't know what their story is. I mean, I think we all feel that they've been stringing us along. From a business standpoint, I don't know how big a business he has. I live on a private drive, and for the last 3 or 4 years, he's plowed our drive in the winter. We've contracted with him, and they've done a great job. I mean, they show up very early, and they do a good job. They come back without us even having to call them, if it's necessary. And from that aspect, it seems like he runs a pretty tight ship. But I don't know what else they do. And I mean, I don't know how big they are in the summertime, and if they're successful or not successful, or I don't know what his story is. But. Okay. Good. Okay. All right. The next meeting will be May 17th, 2016. Other than Chick-fil-A, do you know if we have any other agenda items? I'm just curious. You don't have.
My cheat sheet is hanging on the wall.
The reason I asked, I'm not sure if I could make it is.
I think that we may discuss potentially initiating some text amendments. And that's all material that you would get in your packet beforehand, so you would see it.
All right. Nothing else, and we'll call this meeting adjourned.
I'll second that.
All right. Thank you.